Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station, with host
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
We did not engage in conflict that was out of line with our mission.
Is it disloyalty? Is it sedition? Is it treason to oppose the hand of tyranny? Never!
I will never send troops anywhere on a mission of that kind without telling them that if somebody shoots at them, they can darn well shoot back.
I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty! Oh, give me
A dark cloud is finally lifting across the world as U.S. military intelligence and their global partners are destroying the deep state criminal power structure that has ruled over our planet for hundreds of years.
We are free with the God-given right, and we shall not yield that right to any power on earth.
Hi, I'm Scott McKay. The world is at, and I am your host on The Tipping Point on Revolution Radio, where every Monday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, we bring you the latest in this ensuing takedown of this global criminal empire.
That's an image of strength.
You'll get the raw, hard truth here on The Tipping Point, so come join us Mondays, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern in Studio B at revolution.radio.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all!
See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right! You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio.
Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age Conversations covers changes in our climate due to a new and intensifying grand solar minimum, and the media overlooking, downplaying, or burying cold weather changes occurring on our planet. This is in order to keep the global warming agenda steaming full speed ahead. I do this podcast and radio program because we need to begin conversations on how to adapt our food growing strategies long before 2030 as agricultural zones shift, affecting global crop output, but very few mainstream media outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time, cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David Dubine, creator of the Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age 2015 to 2035 video series.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful blue planet. Still trying to include Ransom if I can here. Share, join, add participant. I've been out in the sun all day. I'm setting up a fence to grow food in a hidden way. Ransom, thanks for joining. Out in the sun all day. Back to that food fence we talked about last week. Since I've been working on it the whole week since we talked last time, all the posts, the 4x4 posts are up, all the H posts to, get those cross beams in the ground. We concreted at least half of it. It's going to be a 20-year fence, really. But now really comes the artist of the foodscaping and vision now, because, the green wall going up where plants can grow through. Because everything we're seeing right now seems to indicate, August and July are going to be some dicey months along with October. So I keep getting messages, you better step up your game faster. And I said, okay, I thought I was going pretty fast, but I guess not. So it is time. I want to stay positive because, it seems like we're going from crisis to crisis, more like heavier, powerful message and narrative to the next one. To the next crisis is heavy and more powerful and heavy and more powerful. And it's just a cycle of never ending. Where's the breathing room, Ransom? We need oxygen in a rainforest to set us free with bare feet.
Yeah. Did you catch Biden rambling on about people lined up to get food boxes when we're not even there yet, like some predictive programming? I mean, the food shortages are, all lining up to be about right now, especially with the baby food stuff. But as far as I know, there's nobody lined up in cars yet quite like that. They do have like things that have been going on for years like that. It seemed like some weird predictive programming. Kind of like he said that we were going to have a food crisis. Now he's like out there saying it's like in the middle of it a little soon. What'd you think about that? I mean, is he lost his mind, or is he just saying the things they're telling him to say a little bit too soon, accidentally or on purpose? What do you think?
Yeah, the messaging's out there that things are going to get strange on the food side. So, growing up, we've always been so used to never ending available foods, too many choices in a supermarket, never had lived through a shortage in the US, like, regionally maybe for a hurricane, but I'm not talking about the full US for, multiple months, which is going to be rolling in here at the end of the year. It's hard to not see the messaging. So when he is slipping up, or, you're starting to see more stories in the news about food. And now, just like I said, I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but I was, and Ransom also, talking about this for a while. We had the timeline set that in May, when we're really deep into the planting season, and that first week of June, all these people are going to wake up that are in the business and financial news. And that's pretty much where all these articles are centered right now. That, financial news of the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, World Economic Forum, and Bank for International Settlements all in unison say we're going into food shortages in October. And you start to see these dripping bits, like hot plastic dripping on fire, splattering on the ground, these little tidbits that are lighting the way. Hey, you should see the messaging is clean and clear by now. Whether it's a gaffe or an on-purpose gaffe or what it would be, it's here, it's now, and I'm glad I'm alive to experience it. I'm just consciousness with a human experience at the moment. It's quite interesting looking in on it this way versus what you consider being you are, like a reporter or a dentist or whatever. To look at it that way, I'm just consciousness having this human experience right now reframes everything into just a different way to feel about what all is happening. I almost become just an observer at 60,000 feet above it all, just with that very one statement. And it's really interesting how everything twists that way.
Got the hound dog. Man. People coming for your soybeans already. No, I'm kidding. But no joke. Everywhere you look, especially this, I was looking at CNBC. So, when all the mainstream media people are now on the bandwagon of the same thing right here. Cost of living crisis after more hot inflation. Inflation's up, skyrocketing. People are freaking out right now. Actually, it's I joked about it. I mean, I guess it wasn't a joke, but I talked about it several episodes back where I was talking about the Great Depression and when people started leaping off buildings, and we're seeing weird behavior like that. There's entire articles on Reddit. People are losing their minds over the cryptocurrency crisis we're in right now. So that's pretty bizarre. Like people are literally freaking out like things are already at an end right now when it's we still got a ways to go to deal with stuff. Right here, look. People are worried about all of their accounts getting wiped out, retirement accounts. This is exactly what everyone was talking about when we talked about the Great Reset was coming soon. And I was talking about people lining up for food riots by May. And that exactly happened in the Middle East. So we're right on cue. And this crypto crisis thing, bad to worse. The crypto exchange is now warning that bankruptcy could wipe out users' funds. Meaning that they'll just take all that money with them because they own all of the wallets, except for the people who have the private, obviously, crypto keys to their own cryptocurrency. But if they had it in these big wallets of these firms, we may be just seeing where it just disappears right in front of them. And even if they still own it, it'll get caught up in litigation for some time. And then here's this thing on Reddit that I was looking at. It was just all over the place. Suicide. People that had, hundreds of thousands probably in Luna, where it crashed 99%, freaking out. It's like you can find all of these things. They're even trying to, not to laugh at it, but there are already people having to go to therapy because they're losing their minds over their worth disappearing. But I think some of these should be hanging on, and this, might have a bright future, except for I've been watching it, and every single crypto right now, if you look at it, you don't see people selling. I was looking at people buying and buying and buying. So I think a big transformation of wealth is right there on the crypto. They're going to scare all the regular people out of it. And then they're going to accumulate all the wealth that it's built over the last couple of years. What a neat way to suck up more resources right on the plummet of all of these. It's right in the back of like the stock market, commodities exchanges, the housing market, unemployment's skyrocketing. People are finally admitting that things are not working and they're getting scared. It is a little bit late, but there's never a better time to do things if you're good under pressure, at least right now. Which makes me kind of switch over to this, the revival of forgotten fruit. What are you going to eat when you lose all your money?
Government assistance. Government assistance is what I will eat. Whatever form that comes in, whether it be a digital rationing card, a food stamp, or actual handout, physical food in your hand like you were talking about. But that's where it's going to go. So the more people on that system are going to be more dependent to prop the system up because it's feeding them. That's at the base level. That's scary. You crash an economy, people are angry. You crash their food supply, and there's something very different that happens. The same with giving food. They're going to defend that system to the 100 times more than if they were just defending it because of economics or a job or economy or whatever. They're going to rip it. That's just, yeah. Sorry, there was a point in there somewhere, but
No, it's just like a whole thing. Like it seems like a Broadway play, for example. Everybody's doing their part. They're saying the right things at the right times. They're really snowball affecting this fear from the financial to the food to looming this threat of actual World War III, because they're not letting go of this. I've realized that they're going to go ahead with this World War thing. It probably won't be what everyone's picturing, but it is going to be a redrawing of the national lines, new alliances. And I think the main thing that's going to kick it off is this thing in Taiwan, really. I mean, everybody's paying attention to the Ukraine and Crimea, but kind of the meat and potatoes of why that's going on has already started the chain of events of food problems. So that's kind of a card they've already played. But over here in Taiwan, they're literally like showing their force. China, I was looking at another article where they're showing this, what they call a rehearsal drills, but they're entering their airspace. They're not just rehearsing. They're flying right over their cities, planning
Probing.
They're coming right in. They're seeing that it's not as much as they thought it was, protecting it. Because if you remember, Obama removed our fleet that had been there since, like, I don't know, the mid 50s or whatever, and has been sitting there kind of like a block in a chess move, waiting for the other side to move, and they never did. But since we moved out, we interacted in that first move. So of course they're gonna try to go back and take back their renegade state. Plus,
let me toss a little factoid to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the Chinese fleet's main carrier is named Liaoning, and it's the one that has that curved jump deck on it. Usually it stays within the strait between Taiwan and China, usually, or somewhere in that South China Sea. But what it had done during that same drill you're talking about, it went out to the east of Taiwan, which means that they could set up a blockade and nothing comes in off the island to the east into the Pacific Ocean, which was the thing that shocked everybody, how that happened in that exercise. And that's what I wanted to add in on that thought.
Yeah, I was exactly showing that boat right there with the curved front end. This is like going on in the background, and it's funny how our mainstream media is like putting out lots of articles, but whenever you go to their channels, like the main ones, they're not talking about this because they want the ideas to be on something else right now. And then this whole crypto thing, it's really reminiscent of, and I hate to be that way, but I kind of joked about that not too long ago, saying, I hope we don't get into these times where people start jumping off of buildings and whatnot. And then you're looking all through Reddit, and there's all of these people that are freaking out about their cryptocurrency like it's literally the end of the world. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I know
I have a few thoughts. I have several thoughts on that.
Yeah. Do you think we just need to hold on, people that are invested in it, or do you think they're going to wipe out several of them and kind of get it all focused in on several different approved I'm not saying Bitcoin, but several approved cryptocurrencies for all these little schemes that the governments have been coming up with to try to get a control of that?
Yeah, they have to have a new end to something that has value as the old system collapses during this time. There has to be something that's going to replace it. Maybe not in whole, but at least a part, a leg. And the second leg that's already up and running is the carbon credit trading system. So those two legs, and then within that, they're going to digitize forest, which will also be a land asset value inside. Kind of like, it'd be a gold-backed currency, but this is going to be land-backed, resource-backed currencies. And we see China do this tiny, tiny, tiny bit, but it's nothing like that. You have to pledge your land for 25 years, and then the carbon that's sequestered into the forest there, and they use different satellite technologies, LiDAR, et cetera, to see which types of tree species. So they're pretty good at, down to probably a tenth of a kilogram or a full kilogram or something that precise of how much CO2 that's going to sequester from that forest area. And usually, I think the minimum deposit that you have to pledge is 200 acres, or maybe it's 100 acres, but it's got to stay on their system for 25 years. And then you get revenue from that because there's carbon credits associated with it. Now, currently, since I'd been following, it was as low as $8, and then it was up to 30, and then it was down to 20, and then it jumped to 80, and then back down again. But the peg that they're looking for is $200 for one carbon credit. And then associated with that will be personal allocation credits that will allow you as an individual to have little tiny carbon credits, and then you can go purchase something from a company that actually bought the big amount of carbon credits to make that product because they made CO2 go into the atmosphere. And because there's a tax and a charge on that, then there's money, again, as an asset class. But here's what I was looking at today. We think that all this cryptocurrency might be so decentralized, et cetera, but it's going to get captured in the carbon taxes of the planet here, because you're looking at electricity. And I was, perusing through. I was making a joke in my earlier video that hamburgers at McDonald's were 15 cents, and a Coca-Cola or a milkshake was 40 cents. In the good old days when British Columbia's carbon taxes were $45 a ton, this kind of thing. And one of the videos I did this morning was actually talking about federal minimum carbon taxes out of Canada, and their minimum they set for 2030 is $170, which is very close to the 200 that I'd heard for quite some time. And it goes down by the different province of how much people need to pay for their carbon credit. Now, this is going to this is going to be standard across the entire planet, and even crypto miners are going to get caught on into this because there's going to be carbon taxes on the electricity, regardless if it's in Iceland from hydro or if you're actually burning coal and natural gas to get it, same, but different. You're going to get stuck with carbon taxes on that. So even if you think that, running and escaping over into crypto is going to get you out of that, you're still in that system. And so that's why it's going to be a new asset pillar, because it's so stable and it includes so many aspects of things we have now. It's going to be different from land assets. It's going to be different from manufacturing assets. It's going to be all combined into one, plus a taxation on output. So that's its own set of that's a new pillar. So is crypto. So I got a little long-winded there, but let me go back to the crypto for a second. They are spooking everybody out of it unless you're holding. But these companies are buying up every Bitcoin that is out there. Now, they can't let it go too much lower because there's so many institutions, pension funds, insurance funds already deeply invested into Bitcoin. So it can only go so low before it's going to start affecting balance sheets. So BTC, that's not going to crash very much further, probably going to rebound. But when you mentioned Liyue going to 2 cents from $180, I was thinking, all right, one of two things is going to happen. Like BitConnect, that went up to 300 and some, and it crashed, and then a dead cat bounced up from like 6 to 60, and then did a few more bounces on the way down, and it disappeared because the FBI came in and Department of Justice to investigate on that pyramid scheme from BitConnect. Like, you give me your Bitcoin, and then I'll give you some interest in Bitcoin every day for using your Bitcoin. It's like a bank, but I'll give you interest in Bitcoin. Well, that thing collapsed. It didn't come back, but dead cat bounced all the way for, a couple more days through that or so. But Luna, see, being a stable coin, they got to promote the stable coins for the newbies who don't understand it. So you can't have a stable coin go from a stable dollar down to zero and then expect people to jump in with glee and be like, "Hey, I'm holding a stable coin," like a USDC or a Make or Die or, Tether. They never audited Tether. I mean, they don't know if that's truly $1 behind $1 there. They don't know. But they're spooking the market, and it's selling. And a lot of people who are just into it are selling, and the corporations are swooping it up. But I would say, not financial advice, but at 2 cents for Luna, I could see that thing bouncing back up because of a rescue squad of all the other cryptos or some other type of banks that want to prop it and make sure it pops back up again because they don't want to spook the incoming masses. See, it would be a story like that. Like Luna went from 2 cents to $200 or 2 cents to $50. And it'd be sort of another Dogecoin where people made millions for having, $100 worth of Doge back in the day. They need those kind of stories to come again. because what they're doing is we're hitting the bottom here and the corporate buyers are out and they're going to swing it in. This is going to be a replacement for the economy crash coming in, along with all that carbon credit stuff. So combine these two now, plus gold and silver, and now you got three really very strong pillars to rebuild a full economy from. Then it starts to get interesting with the release about electric gravitics and the different Tesla technologies and free power. But again, they're going to, even if you had motors running, or I should say generators running on the Earth's magnetic field, would they charge that in the carbon credit system? I'm not sure. But Luna at 2 cents, I can't believe it. It could very well jump back up again. We'll see, not sure. But I'll let you respond. But then I had another thing off Coinbase when you were talking about that as a general unsecured creditor.
Yeah, well, it just seems like to me that how can all of the cryptocurrencies all take a nosedive at the exact same time? And like what if I demonstrate here?
Well, that was like that in 2017 also. So if anybody was around back then when crypto was getting big, the same exact thing happened. Everything fell at the exact same time. But the prices were way lower back then.
And it's like the prices are basically, you know, I was looking at the 1 year thing, and everything's taken a hit about 40%, except for like 5 different cryptos.
Yeah. It's what it did last time too, about 40%.
I think this has more to do with all the articles that they're spinning out about everybody losing, all of their wealth and stuff like that. And then meanwhile, when you look down here, and you look at the data below it, it shows you for each one, the majority of people that are involved in the cryptocurrency right now, like that are actively doing something, are buying. They're not selling, they're buying. They're buying everything because everything's at like rock bottom prices. So is the buy, like, when you're dealing with this, you have to ask yourself, am I going to listen to mainstream media, or am I going to actually pay attention to what people are actively doing in the market? Because what I'm seeing is a bunch of people getting lowball prices because the smaller purchasers are all panicking and trying to get their money out before they lose it.
Well, not only that, but I will come back to say, remember, Ransom, when you and I had talked so many times that people are going to become aware that follow business news, agricultural news, finance news, etc. That is not very large of amount of people on the planet. But generally, those types of people who are in those businesses, in those industries, and follow that type of news will know there's something going on financially, like the markets were going to sell off. There was a lot of indicators for that. So for me, it's more like those people in the know that are getting the same messaging I am about these diesel shortages coming in, food shortages at the end of the year, are starting to exit, like sell their stocks to get money to go buy shovels or a farm or anything, a tractor, could be anything, a tiller. People are selling stuff, or selling their stocks or bonds, whatever it is. They're really selling things in the market to get liquid cash to go get ready for what's coming. That's that kind of crowd that has that money to sell and drop that. So perhaps letting no good crisis go to waste, it's amplified because there's so many people exiting at those levels to get that money right now. Could it be part of it? Very well could be.
Meanwhile, there's baby food shortages everywhere. I was looking at this dailymail.com, and they're showing 50% of the products here. Let me show the audience here. 50% of products is out of stock at stores in Tennessee, Texas, and Delaware. 43% is missing from shelves nationwide. And then, my conspiracy mind also sees that pallets are showing up on the southern border here. And I don't think that, and also
pallets.
Bill Gates,
what do you mean pallets?
So a lot of people are mad because the border facilities where they're, putting kids in cages still, or, it's the same thing as it's been the last three presidents. However, for some reason, they're getting pallet loads of baby formula. And I don't think it's because, the other stores can't get it. I think that what they're trying to do is use it like a political weapon. Hey, look at this. Look, they're all getting it. They're coming in at the southern border and they're getting baby food, but you can't get it at your store, and it's just like right in your face. And then it's on every mainstream list. The poor babies, they're going to be dying because, but it's a real crisis for somebody that actually can't find it. So if you're in one of these stores, and you're looking for your baby food and there's just none there. So what do you do? And we kind of ended the show last time talking about that, about, growing the right kind of stuff that's easily digestible for your children. But I think a major portion of this, we're still in the major propaganda phase. They want everyone completely convinced that there's just no help. There's just no way to, make things better. And it seems like they're really trying to shove people mentally in that area so that they just don't do anything for themselves. And then meanwhile, I'm looking around and I see certain people, I guess retirement age or whatever, and they're putting up new decks. They are, like you said, they're just using their money to get physical things so that the next decade or so is more comfortable for them. And I think everybody should be doing that. And that starts with growing food and then, repairing things. We got a new thing kind of in my house. It's not really new, but I've been trying to harp on my family about it. And it's more preaching to myself. I'm trying to wake up. Now, what can I do today to better, improve my existence on this earth? Because you got to start with you. And then once you're comfortable, of course, you can start helping other people. And that's how the whole positive wave of things go. But it's hard to get people back into that vibe when they're panicking about world war and baby foods and their investments, becoming dust before their eyes, whether it's, 401ks or stocks and bonds. Everything's taking a hit right now. But this isn't the first time, am I right, that this cycle of everything crashing and them preaching that the sky is falling as far as financial. I think this might be a little bit different because we're converting over to a world government. And I think the main point of everything right now is to get everybody herded into a singular system of tracking, tracing, monetizing, etc. And that's just the way and the time that we're in. And it seems like they're in a rush now. They're in a rush to really convince people that they need to go over to the system so that they don't miss out on benefits and, things like that. They're pitching this in a way that if you participate in all the programs, the give me programs, that somehow you'll make it out ahead. But this idea has never really worked whenever there's nothing free. So it's got to be coming from somewhere. And people just don't get that. So you can't have a bunch of people trying to get free at the same time as things are collapsing. It just doesn't make sense. We're definitely going into that time. And I think before long, you're going to start seeing evidence of people losing their minds. And I don't just mean, like talking about suicide because they lost millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in crypto, but really worried about not making payments on their home, becoming homeless with their family. And then they just add these little things like the baby food. It's just straws that break the camel's back, or the last little bit of stress that makes people go over the edge. And then wait for the pharmaceutical shortages to come this year. And what I mean by that is not stuff that you would think of like antibiotics and stuff. That'll come later. I mean a shortage in all of these SSRI reuptake inhibitors, mood-altering, mind-altering substances that 40+% of our population is on. And then people are going to not be in their right minds, and we're just going to see bizarre things happening. And I think this Roe versus Wade thing was just another one of those straws. They really don't care one way or the other. It doesn't seem like they just wanted to cause turmoil, distraction in the public while they're redistributing the wealth into a global pyramid scheme that they've been trying to attain for so long.
Let me add another one. Could possibly be there to tip the apple cart over. Coinbase you alluded to it when we first started tonight, that they were warning that bankruptcy could wipe out user funds. Like, what does that really mean? Well, I read through the article, and I even talked about it in the video I did today up on the Adapt 2030 channel. Coinbase considers you a general unsecured creditor. So if you're going to purchase the coin from them and then keep it on their exchange, which they have, or just their site, they own the keys, you don't. And that's the same thing that happened back to 2017 when Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash forked. Coinbase had all the private keys for everybody holding Bitcoin. And then they kept the Bitcoin Cash for themselves off the fork, and then subsequent forks off of that. But then some litigation came in, and they're like, no, you can't steal. That's just plain theft. And it went back and forth for a while. And all the while, the Bitcoin Cash price was dumping out, and people wanted to get it and sell it, but there was a holdup forever to get your Bitcoin Cash legally yours because you're supposedly the holder of it. You bought the Bitcoin, it's in your Bitcoin account, it's in the account, in Bitcoin, in Coinbase, but they're like, nope, the forked coin, no, you don't have that. And see, that's how you first were introduced to Coinbase in 2017. That's the same Coinbase that's now saying you are a general unsecured creditor, meaning you have no right to claim for any of your property. So if they go bankrupt, they can actually grab everybody's whatever crypto's in there and sell it to say, hey, well, we'll help you pay, before they ever go and ask the government for a bailout. They will steal everybody's funds, all the crypto, and then resell it and take that money legally. And here's the scary part. You might say, okay, well, that's just a fly-by-night crypto house, for a better term. But I'll bring you back to 2008 and 2009 with the financial crisis. After there was such turmoil in the markets, we have to pass laws. We must pass laws to make sure that these Wall Streeters don't do it again. And one of the laws they passed while everybody was playing video games or watching Netflix, bank bail-ins. Now, see, the banks use their money from their what? Unsecured creditors, including depositors and bondholders, to pay off if they go bankrupt. Now, I'm seeing it in two places. That's every U.S. bank has that same law. The money is the bank's. They can choose to give it back to you or not. It's the same in Coinbase. They can choose to give you your crypto or not and send it out. When you send that transaction, I've had a couple rejected. Was that them saying, no, we don't have enough, we'll wait, put you on a wait and hold, and we'll let you have it whenever you have it. Try again in an hour or two or tomorrow, whatever. It's the same verbiage that's used, unsecured creditor. So, Coinbase, you would expect that. It's crypto. I think from what I've seen for years now, it's just US dollar. And for the entire financial system, there's already 3 to 4 bedrock, very solid, completely functional replacements to go right now. People just have to adjust to it. They would adjust through the crash and a new monetary system being built. But the thing that would be terrible for everybody is thinking that they have their deposits in the bank is safe, and it gets swooped. Safe deposit boxes also. If you have anything in a safe deposit box, and this is to anybody out there, that falls under the same exact law, that anything, banks use money from unsecured creditors. Depositor, you have a safe deposit box, you're depositing into your safe deposit box. I know it's the letter of the law. But anyway, they could break in, and let's say everything go terribly awry, and they need money to stay afloat. They're going to go into every single lockbox, every single safe deposit box, take everything out of there and sell it. That's the letter of the law. They're just choosing to give you your money back, and they're choosing to allow you access currently. But what happens when we swing into like a full financial crisis where they do want to reset it and you can't get your money out of the bank and you can't get your crypto because they're both unsecured creditors? So both places just got taken out at the knees for your access to money. Now, here's the thing, and you might read the law and say, well, it says banks can only use deposits in excess of $250,000 because the FDIC will come and reimburse you. If you have under $250,000, they'll still take the money. And then you're going to have to wait in line and then knock on the door of the FDIC to say, give me the money that the bank took. You know, the FDIC isn't there pressing a button and saying, no, you got to leave $12 in Jane's account because, you know, oh, no, you can't take that $25,000 from Mike's account over there. No, it's under $250,000. You have to leave it there. You can't touch that one. Nope, they're going to swoop it all.
This isn't so much
and then the FDIC is going to reimburse you.
Stuff up. This is a
now,
major
in a full market cataclysm,
policy failure.
Do you think that's going to happen?
Australia.
And see, this should be a wake-up call because, Ransom, you triggered a lot of thoughts in me. Bam, that went up fireworks style there. Of those two things specifically, but it's also apropos that today's video included both of the slides.
We understand, though, that this is a very serious decision that the Solomon
Islands
has made. We are, as we've said today, deeply disappointed that they have chosen to go down this path.
Yeah. We talk about scenarios, and I always get the impression off of people when I get kind of deep like that things can turn, you know, at a moment's notice. That they don't really think that can happen here. And I kind of wanted to remind people that, you know, there's a lot of people in China right now that would disagree with you that things could now be like that, especially people that, you know, were living in Hong Kong. So like just to look through, you could, you know, I kind of was talking about Taiwan, but even besides that, what's going on with the Chinese people themselves? So in Hong Kong, they rounded up all of the people that were going against this guy running. And then, like in the news, you see this guy, I forget his name, but they say he ran unopposed and becomes the new leader of Hong Kong. And it's funny because there are two mainstream headlines arguing with each other. And then you look further what's going on in China. So Xi Jinping is supposed to, or I'm not going to try to say that right, but
Xi Jinping.
Xi Jinping is going to step down, so we have no idea who's going to about to take over. And at the same time, I'm watching videos that are just disturbing, like let's see, it's at the Apple factory. So they were keeping everybody at the Apple factory to, you know, like kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, where they were keeping everybody that worked there just on scene at the place. So the lockdown, their COVID lockdown was happening and they could just stay at work and go to work. And it was, they started losing their minds and a bunch of people ran for it. Now, I hate to know what happened to those people, but some other bizarre things are happening too over there. Chinese border police are clipping passports of citizens as they arrive back home. So all the people that were anywhere else in the world are coming home to find the police state is waiting for them there, clipping their passports, and it's at the point where, you know, things are way past Germany or anything that you could kind of, because everybody uses that for the example of how bad things can get. But I would think it surpassed that already going, looking at China. They're bragging about having fleets of drones tracking people down, anybody that runs. And it's just a reminder that, you know, things could happen here just as fast as they happened in China. Especially with, you know, kind of the leaders we got right now. And then over here, you see that we are failing as a country. And I hate to put a dark tone on it, but like what we're doing right now is actually figuring out how to navigate the collapse of our civilization. We have inflation that's skyrocketing. You know, we can talk about all these things, but look in every sector. Stock market slump ends since 401ks tanking. That's Daily Mail head, and then you got MSNBC talking about the cost of living crisis and more inflation data coming in. So from every angle, what they're telling you is if you haven't prepared by now, you're a little screwed. But they're obviously about to come out with the problem reaction solution. And I think that's when Americans are finally going to wake up, that things can get really bad. And the way that in the form that they're going to do that is this passport that they're already controlling billions of people within China. It only makes that would be the case, considering some of our leaders are very fond of the Chinese style. Even the guy over there in Canada even said he wishes he could set up a Chinese style system in Canada. So you see that all of the supposed free leaders of the world are completely open to the idea of endless lockdowns and complete control of every single citizen under their perceived power.
Yeah, it does seem.
That's so you can't use the back door, the crypto thing too, because you were alluding to that they're just going to track every bit of that too. So you can never actually have privacy in economics as well. Sorry to interrupt.
No, unless you're using Pirate Chain or Monero. And who's got that already? I mean, Monero was just a couple bucks back in 2017, 18, and now it's several hundred. So whatever you bought back in 2017 that survived all the transitions, I mean, just buying in 2017 and holding on to it and not doing a single thing to it, and you just still have a hand of gold left over. Because there's ones it's a continuous trade-off, but you'd mentioned there would only be a few of them around. So I would suggest everybody to go back to 2017 and see exactly what's around today as a functional blockchain that could be used as a payment medium, or it could be used as its own credit card system already functional, and then those are the ones that would be used. And by the way, Litecoin Cash, the fork off of Litecoin, is a functional network, Lightning Network. So they have their own protocols, and it is functional, and it's sitting there at a very low price. And all it would take is somebody to come in and put an enormous amount of money into it and actually take that blockchain functional as it is and use it as a payment system. Those solutions are already there inside the crypto space. So again, if you're going to have Fortune 500, so let's say you need 500 functional payment systems, well, those are already somewhere in the 19,000 coins that are out somewhere in crypto land. But you only need about, 500 of them or so to function in the new world. So the other ones will just go away. But what are some of those 500? Again, a lot of them are related to payment. A lot of them are data storage or immutable storage of documentation, etc. Movement, XRP with the digital ledgers, settlements. I mean, there's going to be things that for every strata of society that we see today, how there's things for credit cards, and there's also one for cash, and there's also, loans from banks, and there, whatever you see in the whole financial world that's available, there is a cryptocurrency to offer the same functionality of that same thing that's a product, whether it's insurance or banking or whatever it is. It's there, but it's just not pushed into usage at full function like it would be needed to make the world go round once again. Once it stops, it's going to reverse. And we're gonna see the fallout of some sort of system here, which will quickly be. It's already set up. You already know where it's going, where it's going to. So, I would think, looking at a list, I actually went to Coinbase when you were talking, or not Coinbase, but CoinMarketCap, excuse me. And I'm looking at the head and shoulders pattern here on the crypto market itself. Like, it's the most perfect head and shoulders setup that you've ever seen. So if you do any indicator trading on that, take a look at what does a head and shoulders pattern indicate, or what does it mean? What does a head and shoulders pattern mean? And it's the most perfect one you've ever seen. Go to coinmarketcap.com/charts, or just click on the blue highlights at the top up there, and you take a look at the ones that you think there's 19,410. See, I was close on that one. Let's look at the cryptocurrency. So for sure, Bitcoin's going to be in there. I'm going to give you, for those of you out there, I'm just going to go through my list and take it for what it's worth. It's not financial advice. It's just, these are the ones I think still might be functional as we move to another economy. So Bitcoin for sure, Ethereum, obviously so much runs on that one. That is the base protocol layer for almost everything out there. That's not a functioning financial ecosystem. Tether, no. USDC, yes, because I've heard story that Tether and Algorand are going to team together in Africa and the Sahel to be able to put infrastructure for water and agriculture. So USDC, BNB, obviously, XRP, absolutely, Cardano, yes. The BNB, Solana, that's another one to look at. What do we, let's see, Maker DAI is a stable coin. Yes, absolutely. It's still at $1 even after all the market turmoil. It's still exactly at $1. I love the protocol. It'll cost you a few extra cents to get a DAI versus a Tether, but go for quality. It's like a stamped silver bar. You can get a generic or you can get a stamped silver bar with the serial number on it. That's what DAI is in terms of stable coins. So Litecoin, yes, absolutely. Chainlink for sure. Stellar and Algorand. All for sure. Now, there is some other side networks here like Ethereum Classic. Again, could be used as a payment medium. Monero, absolutely. VeChain, yes. And like I said, Pirate Chain is anonymity coins. And I'm looking at different, like EOS used to be big. I'm not sure exact. Oh, Zcash, definitely put Zcash in your pocket there. Whole pocket of Zcash, that's good. Now, the graph, perhaps, but that's in the future, about 5 years when they move to hash graph. So the tech's out there already, what they're going to move to. So just put it in perspective also, hash graph is where they're moving to after blockchain. And I didn't say cryptocurrency, I said blockchain. So hash graph is what they'd anticipated to move to using blockchain as an interim step. And blockchain includes crypto, okay? It's going to move also, and they were talking about 10 years, around 2030, for it to start really moving to this new system/protocol hash graph. Let me see. And see, I don't really see much else that I thought would make it through the transition here, but I will say, remember when I mentioned that take a look at the coins that were around in 2017, Loopring is one here. It's at number 79, but it used to be way over $1. I forget. It was one of the premier coins of the time, Loopring, and now it's 43 cents, but it did endure during the crashes there. And since we're getting further down, Decreed as well. That's another one. Oh, it's still $31. Okay, that was around during, I'm going to say Decreed just because I knew it was already, that still held a lot of value. That's, who was that guy who did a lot of crypto shows? Crazy guy. It was fun to watch. Super awesome. But anyway, those are out of the top 100 coins that I see, maybe Year in Finance also. Oh, NEM would be as well. And Quantum, but that's sort of a Chinese thing. But that's pretty much it that I think would survive. And that was scrolling through the top 100 coins off of CoinMarketCap that I personally have seen or feel that might make it through the transition, looking at it from a different lens. So I'll leave it there.
So you're expecting a pretty good rebound, that they're just kind of dangling people off to absorb the money. Because I think on Drudge it said 200 billion disappeared in one day, but it didn't really disappear. It just lost value temporarily. Am I right in thinking that?
Well, yeah, but then there, what you're seeing on these listings here of like CoinMarketCap, and there's quite a few others, different services, just a price listing. That only shows the volume that went through an exchange. That didn't show over-the-counter orders. And that's mainly where these big corporations are buying and swooping up. Everything that's being sold right now is called OTC, over-the-counter. Like that's where they actually know, obviously, they got the money. They're the ones who all started the exchanges. So there's people with big money that go directly to an exchange and say, I want 300 Bitcoin. I'll take $1 million of Bitcoin right now and just serve it to me. But that's more of a direct thing that goes not through any of the exchanges. It's over the counter. So when you're looking at some of these volumes, it doesn't include exactly 100% of what's been transacted. Some of these larger purchases, yeah, it's not going to affect it. You won't see it through the exchanges. So if you're watching Binance and whatever, or you're watching Coinbase on their Coinbase market there, or well, there's a few other, I don't use centralized exchanges and all. I forget a lot of them. Private wallets are the way to go. They're not showing you the full volume. So behind the scenes, what's happening now is all the corporations that thought they missed the bandwagon after Michael Saylor came out and just preach to the choir Bitcoin, and then Elon Musk come out, and then all of a sudden right now you got pension funds jumping in to get Bitcoin under their belt, insurance funds, retirement funds, banks themselves, ETFs are on the books. And there's a lot of big companies like MicroStrategy that swooped up a bunch of Bitcoin, and they saw their balance sheets rise to infinitum up there, and people were just shocked. Like, you tripled the value of your company by buying Bitcoin. What? Can we do that too? And then yes, like the amount of Bitcoin that institutions are buying right now it's being bought while everybody's being scared while it drops 18 or 25%. Don't believe the hype.
Well, yeah, I've been kind of open with like my viewers. I showed them how much I invested, but you know, so periodically I show them where it's at, and I was just showing them the whole graph where it fell off, and it's been this massive sell-off evidently. But like I said, I go to each individual one and I look at it over a year, so all of them just about have more value than they did last year. A lot of them lost value this year. But when you look at the graph all the way across and then look at the people they're buying, there's lots of people buying. And I see more buying than I see selling, yet the articles are saying it's a sell-off. So, you know, obviously they manipulate the market through the articles that they're pushing out for people that are trying to be, you know, savvy on everything, and whether or not they really understand, you know, how it works or not. They're influenced by these articles, and it seems like that's what they're doing, is trying to steal a lot of wealth using fear. And you know, like I actually, if you look at what I invested over a year, I'm only down like $300. The indicator says that you're down several $1,000s, but that's actually the money that was gained over a year's period, and it went up to like, I don't know, 5,000 something. Off of like $1,600, and it's like at $1,300 now. So really, I haven't lost that much. I don't know how other people were doing it, but I've been just watching it go up and down every day, and I could tell in the algorithm that you know, normally, not counting this last little dip in the thing, but normally people are buying at night, or excuse me, they're selling at night when the price goes up, and then early in the morning the price dives. And then you see a bunch of people, you know, recouping their money of all the stuff that they sold that night when it was the value was skyrocketing. And I've watched this happen every night, and I've been looking at them. So there's a definite way that someone could just sit there and make money on the ups and downs. But in the long term, it seems like, if I was judging, you know, like the amount of time that it's been sitting there, overall it went up most of the time, and now it's going down. So if I continue the pattern on the graph that I see there, it should go back up in November. It should be quite a bit higher than it is this time, but it'll be a little bit higher than it was last year overall. That seems to be the way almost every single one of them are doing. Slowly over time, they gain wealth. They do have these big dips, but it seems like they're all manipulated, like I said, to herd people one way or the other of buying or selling. But I kind of wanted to get into food that's available, because it really piqued my curiosity when I came across an article talking about the pawpaw and kind of lost fruits to the Americas. And immediately I'm interested, how can we feed ourselves?
I planted pawpaws last year. Let's talk about pawpaws when we come back. We'll see you after the break. David Dubyne, Ransom Godwin, Revolution Radio, Studio A.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Galactic Interstellar Council on Revolution Radio Studio A, Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Join us as we traverse the starseed paradigm, as expressed in the time-space continuum that we know as the divine expression of love and light. Integrating this conscious unity into the galactic paradigm. So welcome all, both terrestrial beings and galactic beings as one. So be it. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps. All right, thanks for listening while we take that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
And welcome back for the second hour of Mini Ice Age Conversations with the barking dog in the background. Warning, whatever that is. Are your animals behaving strangely? A lot of people are having strange animal behavior with different solar activity. I'm right along here with Ransom, Godwin, 420 TV Freedomist Films, and I do thank Revolution Radio Studio A for letting us have the time to talk tonight. So we don't even have to worry about censoring our speech. We can speak freely. If you enjoy that and think it's of value, give a donation. Keep the running costs, production costs flowing. So just like our information can continue to flow, second hour Mini Ice Age Conversations, I'm going to start with a question or more fill in the blank, I would guess. So the top 10 easiest vegetables to grow. Tomatoes. Which number do you think it is from 1 to 10? Like tomatoes, how difficult do you think it is to grow tomatoes? It's a 1 to 10 list. 1 being the most difficult, 10 being the easiest.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to say 3 then, at least.
No, tomatoes is number 10. I can't believe it. Cucumbers, number 9. So I guess the 9th easiest veggie to grow would be a cucumber. Black beans, peas, spinach. Coming in at number 5, potatoes, in the top 10 easiest vegetables to grow. Jalapeno peppers. Lettuce is coming in at number 3. Number 2, kale. And number 1 of the top 10 easiest vegetables to grow, radishes. Surprising list, I must say, but, there it is.
Yeah, that must be based on, like, where is that based at? Because some of those that were listed easy, I thought are hard, and vice versa there. I mean, I guess it depends on where you're at. The cucumber thing, I've been trying for years, and I've only got 3 or 4 cucumbers out of like 20 plants.
Yeah, it would be specific, huh? Well, the top 10 easiest vegetables to grow in the Arctic. I guess that's a short list. Compared to top 10 easiest vegetables to grow in a greenhouse, that'd be very different. So who else out there thinking of putting together a greenhouse, a cattle panel greenhouse, something like that? Because if you can get some hog panel or cattle panel, which is basically a fence, then you can bend that over, fix 2x4s in a frame, and then you can cover that with 6mm clear plastic and turn yourself into a grow room and have a greenhouse right in your backyard.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm actually planning on doing that, similar to that, but I'm using landscape timbers for a frame, and then we're going to try to put that clear plastic paneling that you usually use for greenhouses and just kind of wrap it around the whole thing. Did we get disconnected? Maybe.
Oh, I stopped out. I was jumping outside to see why those dogs were barking, because generally they really don't bark that much. For me, that's like, I need to look outside because they're barking so much, kind of look out. Unbeknownst to me, when I was out there, I'm hearing all these other dogs completely going ape all the way down the whole valley. And then all of a sudden, I could hear the coyotes. So that's the reason the dogs are barking. There's coyotes out there right now. So welcome to Thursday evening in East Tennessee. 10 easiest plants to grow, and a pack of coyotes up in the hillside behind our house here, and the dogs are barking at them. Like, okay, what's the next thought, Ransom?
I was about to say Sasquatch, man. I don't know. Maybe the coyotes are yelling at him too. Yeah, the top 10 kind of brings me to this article from BBC, which is odd that they're, it's like more of a British thing. But anyway, it's called The Revival of Forgotten American Fruit, and it goes in and talks about a pawpaw, which is, something that, I'll be honest, I didn't even really know what it was. I mean, I've heard that before, but this is the first time I'm looking at one. Is this a sweet thing? And where can you grow it? You said you planted some already.
Yeah, I did. Like, I didn't know what it was either. Just a couple years ago, I'd never had one before. And when I looked into getting trees out on the property, we went to some nurseries, and one was way up in the mountains, and they had pawpaw trees, and they were really mature, big ones, 28, 25-year-old ones, and they were producing fruit. And it was the first time I ever had that fruit. And from the very second that I tasted it, I'm like, I need to grow these. It's like a sweet tart. It's like a little bit sweeter, sweet tart fruit. They take an incredibly long time to grow, and they generally grow in wet places, like right next to a creek, or in a swampy estuary that floods, and they're right on the edge of it, like maybe willow trees would be. They're right there in that really wet section of everything. So if you're going to plant those, they're going to take a bit to fruit and flower, like a decade plus. But if you can get them, and they're really easy to grow in the Southeast U.S., it's a fruit worth having.
Yeah, it looks kind of good. That kind of brings me to my next question. Like, how important is it to plant some of these plants that take years to get? Like I was going through my seeds, and I found like several packets of asparagus, and then I start reading the instructions on the back, and I realized that this thing takes 2 years to get food off of. Like, how important is it to really get a structure going on your property or wherever you got planted, where there's lots of stuff that are long-term foods as well as short-term foods? Because, we always talking about radishes and things. What can you get going, like microgreens in a hurry? But what about for the really long-term, as far, like, of course, fruit trees pop in mind as something that'll produce every year. But what about some of these other like vegetables and things like, for example, the asparagus there? Because I was thinking, wow, 2 years. I mean, I'm going to have to wait 2 years to get a tasty asparagus. Well, he might have had to go out there to check on his coyotes again, possibly.
Oh,
But
no, I'm
I
here.
was,
I was saying that, any food forest. When you're having a food forest, you definitely want to plant something with longevity that even takes a couple of years. Because think about where you've lived. Anybody out there listening? Have anybody lived for 2 years in the same place you're living now? Well, if the answer is yes, you would be getting that asparagus because it's been there for a couple of years. And that's the same with like wine vines. You could say, well, you got to wait almost 2 years before the big or the third year you get the densest fruits or whatever. Would you plant them now and then 3 years you're still in the same place? Some things are worth waiting for. Like we have these persimmon trees that are right on the edge of the cedar like stand. And by hollowing out or like just cutting around them last year, they were like really super deep in the cedars. And I made a little notch in there to put a small garden. And those trees this year are just doing so unbelievably spectacular. I'm shocked by how big they got and how girthy they are, but they're persimmon trees. And those also take a couple years to get the fruit. But once you do, they drop it continuously. And, it could take a few years, but it's the whole thing about, do you anticipate being in the same place you are in 5 years or 10 years? Because they always say the best time to plant an orchard, Ransom, 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Or 10 years ago is the best time to plant an orchard. So it's always continuously, even if it takes a while to get things like that up and running, then it's well worth it to put it in play.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea that I think everybody should really be headed for is because that's kind of the idea, at least I want. I want to be able to not spend so much time and effort. So actually, whenever I think about asparagus in that way, or plants that take a long time, that's really working for the future. So you can have all kinds of stuff ready that's separate from all the stuff that you plant every single year. Because think about it. Like this year, I was, for example, all of my greens and all of the sprouts and everything kind of got chewed up, and I have them moved, and I'm babying all these plants. But those bigger plants like that wouldn't have really been affected, by stuff like that. So you kind of have to obviously plan in different scenarios for the short term, midterm, and long term of everything that you're doing. And this whole idea of minimal effort gardening is kind of way I think that most people would be doing it, other than people that have a lot of money, because I found that with a little bit of money, and I'm serious about that, little bit of money, you can find seeds, and there's just so many free resources to start growing food now that by the time you kind of make a lot of mistakes and stuff, you have several different growing areas that are doing their own thing that has nothing to do with you now. And I have that, like an example is potatoes and walking onions. I didn't do anything, or actually all of the onions. I got white onions, red onions, yellow onions, spring onions, etc., that I've put out there in the last couple of years. And that's basically the bulk of the food that's out there while I'm over here babying these other plants trying to get new food in this year. I already have a stockpile of minimally effort put into it food that's just sitting out there. It may not be your favorite, and we've kind of gone over that. You shouldn't really plant things that you're not going to eat, but you can plant things that you'll eat if that's what's around, and it's maybe not your favorite, but it'll pass, and especially filling up your tummy. That seems to be the direction that everybody, if you're reflecting off the news headlines and all of these things, from stock markets to cryptocurrency to food shortages to baby milk, all of that should be telling you that you really need to disconnect from the system and start figuring out how to produce for yourself, because Uncle Sam and your daddy, the government's just not really going to do it without super large big chains and balls attached to anything that you get from them.
Yeah, you made a comment about the veggies. Food is food. It's been around with us for eons. We all know what it is, but now can you prepare it, grow it, and be able to forage for it and have a system to be able to cook it if you're not relying on centralized systems? Because you were talking about vegetables earlier, and the kale, every time you get kale, there's going to be insect larvae on it, or caterpillar larvae or something. So in addition to washing it You definitely need to cook that one beyond, I've seen some people eat it raw, Chinese kale and whatnot. But that kind of curly kale that we all get, or you see, and then juice it sometimes, got to come from a greenhouse. Because imagine, we got to get off these centralized systems. That's the only thing I can say is what's ever occurring right now. There's so many flags and signs out there that the centralized delivery of things is going to stop, at least for some time, until they can reset it and then reset a monetary system with it. But during that transition time, like let's say from October until, at least mid-growing time of July or August of the following year, like, are you able to be self-sufficient for that period of time? Because that's about how long, in my opinion, it's going to take before things get settled down again. It's kind of like COVID in the beginning. There was not enough masks, not enough hand sanitizer. People freaking out that they couldn't get it. Well, now what if it's not enough 6mm poly for my greenhouse and not enough 10-10-10 NPK fertilizer, 10-10? Then maybe somebody will start to manufacture all these things. Not enough shovels. I mean, if everybody in America went to go get a shovel, I mean, there's not enough. You'd have to start going through estate sales and getting through old, grandparents' closets and stuff. But that's how I could see it. Got to get off the systems. So if you can, like I say, I would say July-ish, when these kind of vegetables are coming back in, because anybody who's growing could get that up early, and especially if you had a greenhouse, you can get that stuff up in February and grow inside your greenhouse. So even if it was October, November, December, and then it finally got just warm enough for its sunny days and you had a heater in there and you could keep everything growing, that a period of time, or is that, okay, so let's reduce that. Is anybody ready for 4 months completely off centralized systems? Or maybe partially, because you got to ask yourself, is the electric system going to stay up during all of this other happenings? Because a lot of people storing frozen food right now. And if the electric goes out, you only have a limited supply of fuel. And could you run a generator for, 120 days straight, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week off the same generator until the power turns back on, and then it's intermittent? That's the kind of thinking out the direction of it. I know it's going to be a difficult task to go to think even that far, but really, how can you get off the centralized systems of delivery for everything at this moment? That includes finance. No banks, no online banking, gold and silver.
I'm thinking big cannabis cubes is where I'm putting my effort into the future there.
Yeah, like I would trade you something for that.
No, I'm kidding, but for real, like just the silver alone, and everybody harps on this, but it's not enough. Like we've talked about it before, like stockpiling antibiotics as far as silver goes. And I bet, because I had all these dental issues lately, I've been using a lot of that over the past year. And then they put me on some really strong antibiotics because the amoxicillin wasn't working. And I was imagining, I brought this up last time we talked, but I was imagining, if there were real issues as far as getting medical supplies, pharmaceuticals and things like that, or medical attention, and you got lucky and you got some antibiotics to deal with whatever it was, if they were strong, it would totally devastate your insides, because that's what I've been dealing with. This antibiotic was so strong that I've been just packing down the probiotics, yogurt, etc. And from what I'm reading, a lot of people are out of commission for months at a time. And this is because like their insides are just totally dead. And then you add on top of that, if you're buying food, if you're not eating greens from like out of your garden, you're really getting zero probiotics like from the grocery store. That stuff is so sterilized, washed. They ozone some of it. I mean, like in different ways, there's really no good probiotics on that. So if you can imagine having that issue without, access to growing your own probiotics, and that seems like a real issue that would kill people, having to deal with that because they may not recover in time or whatever, the situation is with their diet. Like, what are some of the ways that you could actually get probiotics besides just going to the store and buying like yogurt? Like, can you create it at home? I mean, I'm sure you can. That sounds like a silly
Fermenting,
question.
yeah.
Yeah. So you get what do you call that drink that everybody likes, kombucha and stuff like that. And we know that, if you don't have a good gut bacteria, I mean, your mood's going to be off. Your intelligence isn't going to be working right. Your entire immune system's off. And then when you really think about what's been going on for the past 2 years in the public, as far as immune systems go, and then you think about all these medical conditions, you can see that even without any kind of economic collapse, the situation we're in, there's going to be all kinds of people with these dietary problems. There already is. I mean, they sell so many pharmaceuticals to cover up symptoms. And the only way that you're really going to get around that without the system is growing everything. So like, I kind of circle back to figuring out how to do everything and jarring your own foods and fermenting your own stuff. These are going to be, they seem like hobbies right now, but in the right circumstances, these could be life and death, knowledges that you need to know. This year, I like I said before to you, I'm concentrating on seeing if I can put stuff in jars till I just cram and fill up every crevice. And, maybe nothing bad happens ever. And we live in fairyland with unicorn dust and everybody gets to eat good and times are good. And that'll be great. But if they're not, I would like to not have to rely on my local FEMA center or charities or my neighbors or anybody to be able to feed my own children. I mean, the idea of just going, you know what, we don't have no money, we don't have no food in the refrigerator or whatever. You just go to the closet. Yeah, here's some pasta, here's some squash, and you're eating like a king, or at least from my opinion.
Fairy dust land. Snap peas or snow peas, Ransom? Protein will be valuable. As I've been told from a fair few people who are well more versed in agriculture than myself, protein will be valuable. So again, you're talking about probiotics. That's fermenting. Who was I talking to? Jeffrey Nyquist, or was it Jim Gale? I forget exactly what they were saying that. Oh, it was Clive DeCarl. He was saying that in Northern Europe back before, like we had refrigeration and all these things, for the very long winter, there would be no fresh foods for the probiotics, exactly what you're talking about there, because they're in the really northern climes, like Scandinavian countries, and they used Norway, Northern Europe, and they would ferment everything to be able to get them through that probiotic or gut thing through the winter. And that is a very important point. And then also, where's your protein coming from? Because without the protein, you're not going to last long either. You just can't live on vegetables. That's why cows will starve to death if they just eat grass only. Like for them grazing in a field, eating field nuts and flowers and stems and stalks and thickness and that sort of thing, as they're foraging through with all the different combinations of vitamins and minerals, micronutrients, etc. for the cattle, going through a wild field that's 2 or 3 feet tall, compared to just nibbling on grass like your front lawn. A cow will starve to death in your front lawn, and it just doesn't have any food. That grass has very little nutrient in it. But overall, it's the same thing. You're going to be needing to think about proteins. So pea protein, they keep trying to get us on insect proteins, but I don't understand why the humble pea is not so looked at. Why has it got to be insects? I'd rather eat snap peas or chickpeas or something.
I don't know if it's just because I grew up poor or near the border, but, I'm happy with beans. And I know you got to have, some animal fats in there just to think good and have good cholesterol for your brain and everything. But we got to realize, there's people in India that have for generations just eaten diets full of lentils and other things like that. Like they really just don't. But, I'm not trying to be harsh on them, but you need a body that can work versus a body that meditates, if that makes sense, because they had good farming and everything. But in my opinion, your body needs to deal with more things than a friendly, peaceful agricultural time, because I don't see us, having that. In my opinion, you need those animal fats enabled to do any real work or have any real energy to do stuff. But I guess you could sit there for years and just eat lentils. I mean, if it's about survival, beans, lentils, there's even protein in broccoli, but that just seems like a very hard existence to me without at least some basic animal fats in your diet, even besides the protein, just the animal fats themselves. If you've ever eaten like any kind of soup or anything, if there's no something in there that's some kind of animal fat, your brain just doesn't key off as it being a delicious food so much as, just plain veg diet, and I know there's a lot of vegans and stuff out there that'll argue to death with me over this. But it seems to be that we evolved as an omnivore, and that there's a special need for meats and animal fats in our diet for us to run properly as a human being. But remember, I'm not a biologist, so I can't even tell if that's a man or a woman. I'm just not qualified.
Are you qualified to identify a green cabbage, a Napa cabbage, or a red cabbage? That's the question. So, the story of Mao Zedong, when he was fighting with his 5,000 troops, the Long March is the official term for this event. The Long March lasted years, plural, and the story goes, they were such heroes to start China that they only ate cabbage for like 5 years. Like, come on. But that was the whole thing, is like cabbage, you got to eat it. Now, you could exist on cabbage. So how tasty would that be? You're right. You need the animal fats, and you need the fat for your brain. So what plants have fats in them? The micronutrients you want to look at, moringa and these sort of thing, different mint family plants, purslane or the nasturtium, something like that grows, that's a flowery, that has some nutrients in it. But really, where does the oil come from if you don't have it from an animal-based source? I mean, that would even come down to the basics of trying to get butter made out of milk or something like this.
When you talk like that, you make me think the apocalypse might be even better than what's going on right now. Because, when you thought of that, all I could do is when you brought up milk and making stuff is when I was a kid and I got to go to dairy farms, and they always had cream. And, I remember eating fresh berries, cream, and cornflakes as one of the most delicious things that I ever had. And then you think about other stuff. You remember the old guy that used to crank out the ice cream for you with the salt and everything. That just makes me think of all of these things that were very delicious and made existence really pleasurable, that are low tech, and all we have to do is just relearn all of these things and put them back into motion. I mean, it's surprising that society has got to the point that they let go of all these easy things that they could have been doing all this time, and replaced it with going to a store and buying a package that has, yet another package and yet another package in it, and then having to pay taxes to throw away these giant mountains of trash that you could all skip by just eating fresh foods. I mean, think about the environmental argument there, that people argue about all of the trash and the plastics in the food, and all of that could be, dramatically reduced if we just started eating like our forefathers ate, and just eat real foods off the land, fresh made, and trade with your neighbor. And, a lot of people don't like that idea because we've gone so technologic and urban that a lot of people really can't picture to going back to that. But think about all the stuff that came out of there, all of the inventions. It was kind of like a second Renaissance kind of in the United States, with all these farmers and different people coming up with things to make life easier. And this is all stuff that I'm talking about that is pre-technological. So, I'm not talking about gas mowers out there and everything. But they had plenty of things to make all of these things we enjoy today in an old way. And why couldn't we bring back all of those? And imagine the small economics that would return to neighborhoods and communities if people in mass started doing that and going back to that.
Too many people are going to get off the system. And see, this is exactly the opposite of what's happening now. It's about getting you on the system as much as they can, so when these basic services of centralized delivery disappear, you will only have the option of government to take care of you. And it comes back down to it. If it's at the base level of food, your family starves to death, your children starve in front of you, you take the government assistance, but you understand what that means for the family, that if you don't do what is told, then the food is removed and your family dies from no food, or something very close to it, where you don't want to see your children not eating for a week or weeks and only scrimpy meals of broth somewhere for years on end. You don't want to see that. But that's what is at stake when even just one family is reliant that much on a food delivery system, because all others have ceased, including the fuels, electrical. What would people do if you give back that to them, the allegiance they would show you by giving them the basics of life comfort? You said it makes life a little more comfortable. Well, food, a house, and electricity make things very comfortable. Now, if you're receiving all three of those things through, say, universal basic income, your digital rationing card for food, different allocations, but you're still being fed, but you need to uphold the system, That's where they're getting everybody. So if they can get enough people into it and really create that, pendulum swing where more people in the system, as this collapse comes in, as they get people into the digital IDs and all these things to get into that system to uphold it, because they're the ones feeding you, and they can turn off your food and your money because it's digital. You're going to uphold that system and defend it to your very last breath, because that's what you need to do to keep your family alive. And, it's a weird way to think on how we're moving in that direction in the first place, because people that do get too much off the system, like you're talking about, we should be going to decentralization. Everybody should be off the system. Too many people got off the system, and governments don't like that. They want you on the system for control. And when I do say that, I mean, taxes and laws, jobs, future investments, whatever it is, the claim on you being born as a citizen that's then onward sold through all these investment houses as potential labor based on your being born in a certain nation, like the States, for example. I don't know. The more you get off the system, the more they want to get you back in. And it's cool when it's like 1% of the population. Oh, look how cute it is. They're living on a farm. But when it becomes 40% of the population, like it did during World War II with the Victory Gardens, and 40% of all food was grown in Victory Gardens in America, in backyards and street sides. 40%. That was way too much. And as soon as that war ended, they got everybody back into the supermarkets immediately as fast as they could. But imagine if we would have continued off that system. We didn't even need to rely on centralized systems for food, for the basics, especially for vegetables. From World War II to now, and that would have expanded to 50-60% of all veggies and food grown in America was grown in the local areas. What control would a government have over people if they couldn't starve them, steal from them, control them in cities and whatnot? I mean, what power's left? None, because all the power is not centralized. It's with the people producing, and then where's the tax revenue? Oh, we can't have that. So you can see how everything, when too many people move to want to get off the system, like happened just before COVID, too many small businesses, everybody is working online, everybody's Airbnb, and they're all Lyft driver, whatever. There's like that whole, huge freedom shift over into digital and digital nomads, and it went on and on. Amount of productivity, people with their online websites, selling things, Amazon, whatever it was, people were making loot and being able to be free, live where they want, and just escape that system, at least partially, by doing it online. And then too many people jumped to that, and suddenly we're where we sit today with even more levels of control inbound, I think.
So I'm, this is kind of off topic to that, but I was sitting here looking at this, because they combine it with global warming as kind of why I came across it, but I don't know if you've seen in the news that they're finding all these human remains in Lake Mead in Nevada. These people put in the barrels, and it's so ironic to me that, because I was talking about all of these little factors that they put out in the news as like an overwhelming, front on people's psyches. So I've noticed in the past, 6 months that thousands and thousands of cold cases have been solved all of a sudden. So, and I kind of brought this up last time, but you can go through the daily, crazies that they personalize for your area. Like if you live in Tennessee, you'll see all the crazy stuff on Microsoft or Google that will go across there. But I was looking at this thing, and it's so funny that they connect this in here. It's like a way to throw out that global warming idea or the climate change idea or the whole thing. And they keep throwing these pictures out of these rusted barrels that have these people that most likely, the mob or somebody dumped out there like a long time ago. And then they're finding more and more of these bodies. But it's so funny that they use any and every single opportunity to put out a negative idea, but then also put in their little propaganda piece about, the environment and how we're all going to die due to our usage of things. Don't you find that bizarre that how they run the system of constantly browbeating you with that it's your fault that everything's happening, but at the same time, they sell you the idea of the next advanced way to do the same thing. Your purchasing and your commercialism is super bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you an app that's from the government. And you know what? If you're poor, don't worry about it. We'll make sure that you got a phone that has the internet and everything. So when you go homeless and you're sitting in your tent, you'll get the $500 for, to go buy you some food, and you'll get your little phone so you can have entertainment in your tent, because basically that's what's happening in cities all over the place. And it's just a weird propaganda wave that they keep adding these, death things. So that all of these people that are stuck on the phones, this is the message that they're getting. They're not getting like, us talking about vegetables or how you could easily, start growing food and things don't have to be as bad. But they put out like article after article of these death things. And what do you think about this? Because you talk a lot about rationing and how this whole system of the interconnected digital systems, from food to finance to health to travel, and they're making them all, combined into one thing. And they're really trying to put it out there as something that you're going to have to do in order to travel, fly, or do any of this stuff. And they finished their beta test, is what I'm calling it, the COVID test, the beta test, but they're done with that. And now we're getting just bombardments of death. And there really are a lot of people dying, but it's the fact that they have this whole system set up now where you can be homeless, you can get free crack pipes from the government, you can go to a place to do your drugs, and then sit in your homeless tent while everybody's losing their minds about losing their money. They have all this concurrently going on at the same time, so it's hard to imagine, probably for the normal person, that you could easily just kind of break out of that system and just start doing a different pattern every day and not fall victim to what they're trying to sell you. I guess that was a weird rant there, but if you get what I mean, it's like a bombardment on so many levels that someone like myself now just sees like a wall of negative stories and directions to send everybody in that bothers to tap into the internet. And I'm sure it's the same on television if you still watch television. So how do we really just like get out there and just break people's minds of that and make them realize that human beings have been here forever, and the whole time they've been growing food and living? And, I know we've had wars and bad times, but for the most part, the earth has always provided. And it's basically that simple when we're going into this next phase, that if you could get in harmony with the earth again, it will feed you and take care of you. So like that. How did people really, like, other than the core group of listeners that listen, how does every one of the listeners right now kind of ease that into the people around them to break this psyche of negative vibration. Like you talk about it a lot. How do we actually push that vibe out of showing people how easy it is to make a positive vibration? I guess is my question to you.
Look at yourself as consciousness having a human experience. And this is, I kid you not when I say that. Because if you look at it as a non-personal thing, as me, David, as myself with the ego and processing of information directed at me, the physical thing, if I take it a step outside of, hey, I'm just infinite consciousness having a human experience. So for me, it's no different than getting on a ride at your favorite amusement park and going up on the roller coaster. You're there for the experience. You just got to take the ride. You don't know where the next curve is going to come in, how it's going to jostle the body, how you're going to rip around corners at high speed and enjoy that ride. You're there for the experience of it. Same thing. I'm looking at it as not directed at me, but the experience of me as a human in this experience. It's a little bit interesting, but that's the only way I can really rationalize a lot of things that I see is I'm stepping outside of it. It's almost as if I'm completely separating myself from it, and it becomes something to look at as you would look at something in an aquarium. And that's the way I have to separate that out. It's two separate, It's not affecting me. It is, and I'm looking at it as a tapestry of stories as things would go through, just like you would watch clouds move through a sunset. Look at it in a distant fashion, separated from yourself, and then separate those two and take a look at it. It's just information. It's just stories. It is what it is versus it's all directed at me. I understand I'm going to be going through the food stuff with everybody else, but you're right, Ransom. This earth has provided for billions of years of animals, plants, insects, fish, amphibians, and all types of things that are on our planet. Bird life. But it's the way we're doing it now. We could have complete abundance. Imagine how many lawns are being used. Just the very simplest fact that if they could teach us to use lawns in a different way, we could feed the world. Just using the lawns of most Americans. Like everything, it could be well independent from what it is now. But and I have this chart here, the age of American infrastructure. Because you alluded to the point there, like that dam when it went low, the average age of a expected service for, this is from the American Society of Civil Engineers and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So when they built a dam, the average expected service on that dam was 50 years. Well, the dams in general, average across the U.S. are 57 years old, and the lock chambers as well, and the levees. But I'll stay on the lock chambers because that's where your grains come through. And see, that's the oldest of all of the infrastructure. 50 years is the expected service, but the average lock chamber, not the super oldest one, to which there's going to be that, is 63 years old. That's the average of a lock, the age of it. But think about how many grains and grain barges are going through the St. Lawrence Seaway and all the way down through the Mississippi River, up through the Great Lakes. How many locks are really used across the vast, vast amount of break bulk or that super big cargo that would go in, aluminum or corn coming down hundreds, thousands of tons on a boat. That kind of volume in barges. That's through locks. If that were to stop, there's really very few ways to get the amount of grain. We're talking millions of tons moved across to a different place. Trucks aren't going to do that. It'd be too fuel inefficient. Railroads, they're claiming that they can't take on any more space because whatever issues. So there would be no way to reroute. They're actually cutting cargo routes off and delivery for a lot of dairy farmers out in California. They've just said no more deliveries. The cargo capacity has been reduced, and we just don't have the teams and the crews. And I keep hearing this again and again. So the locks are something to look at that nobody's looking at. If those stop or those malfunction, then everything does stop and there's no replacement. 10 years ago, yeah, we'd have just rerouted to rail because there'd be so much excess rail capacity. But now, for some reason, a few years later, there's none. It's all gone. Where are the rail cars going? That is a question, too. You can't tell me that they got to reduce across every American railroad 20% of carrying capacity and passage routes because there's not enough cars. Okay, where did 20% of American rail cars just go to is the question. And to add on to that, Hapgood Lloyd 2 years ago had to put an order in for 1.5 million new shipping containers. So where do those 1.5 million shipping containers go? So I'm saying the same place. I don't have the answer exactly, continuity of government, whatnot, but for sure, all that cargo, it's being packed up, long-term storable foods or long-term storage, and then put underground or put into a base or put somewhere in the vehicle that's easily moved. It's already in a container, just load it on the truck. It's already in a rail car, just string them together and pull them down the tracks. It's really that fast. So I don't know. It seems fishy about all these rail cars disappearing.
That's odd that you bring that up because actually one of our listeners is a conductor on up in the northeast or northwest, excuse me. And I was going to try to get to him and ask him about this because he was giving me information before the pandemic started about how they were going to be reducing, the train traffic and how that everybody had to be on a special list to be, using the rail. So they were giving them continuity of government, I don't know, memos, I guess, telling them that things were going to change and that how they were going to be taking control. So I would like to get in touch with him because he kind of went off the grid, retired. And, I'd like to ask him about all of that because he seemed to know that, that things were about to be changing as far as that. And then, we now know that they're doing weird stuff with the rail cars. So it would be very interesting to get an inside view on some of what's really going on as far as the railways are, because if you kind of alluded to these locks, and you remember they kind of showed us what they could do with one barge, right? That one that weirdly just went sideways in the Panama Canal there, and it shut everything down.
Evergreen, yeah.
Yeah, you imagine if that happened again for whatever reason, because it seemed like they just turned and went ashore on purpose, but maybe not. But then you have all of these things going on in Iran, and we know if they shut down that little strait, and then the Black Sea, what's going on with the Ukraine, you could see that in 4 or 5 places globally, they could shut down the entire trade for the world with just a few places because of the way that we do shipping like that.
Yeah, and how would the world recover? Because I was talking with Jeffrey Nyquist earlier, and he was saying that some intercepted emails that had come out of Russia had posed this to different analysts. This is the question that was asked to different analysts. If, let's say, a impact or meteor shower of just biblical proportion, like Hamlet's Mill kind of big, giant cataclysm of impactors were to hit the West, quote unquote, like America, Canada, Western Europe, Australia, if all impactors were to hit all those countries and stop all those nations, would Russia still be able to survive? Now, that was the question posed to the analysts. Think about how that works out into, now we just turn it over into sanctions. So instead of asking them the real question, could it, with sanctions, survive? They made it out as a cometary bombardment event. I don't know where the recovery comes in. It's so far. How are they using the human mind against us is the question, more or less, because what you're saying is, and what I'm saying too, is every story is getting heavier and denser, more fear, and it just keeps winding this spring so incredibly tight on everybody. Like, how are the human emotion being used to facilitate this great reset and what the elite want having us do it for them. And, we've talked about this topic a little before.
Well, it seems like they're just trying to get everybody into the confusion fear thing so that basically they never do anything, and they're just in this rut of what do you call it, purgatory, I guess, kind of, where they're just sitting there, they don't know what to do, nothing's happening. So of course they depend on the only structure that they know, and that's the government. I just feel like there are just so many people locked in this system. I mean, I'm sure that you could just take a minute and go through, like, say, TikTok or something, and you see how off in another world the majority of the youth is. But not just the youth, people our age are completely in their own world about what's important and stuff. So they'll constantly have them out there, protesting or burning stuff down. And I'm actually waiting for this year. I'm expecting, like I said, by the end of the summer, that we'll see more civil unrest actually here in the U.S. Now, it may be sparked by some kind of political event, but when you add all these other stresses, like you're saying, it's a way to make everything a fire ready to just burst into flames, and then give everybody the reality of them artificially shutting down the planet's food supply at the right time before we go into another cycle. It's pretty obvious at this point that they are accelerated. I brought this up last week. They've all indicated at the Davos that things are not working out for them. They're having trouble controlling information, so they're trying to move forward and put a lid on it right now, so that people just only have their narrative, as Klaus Schwab said, the great narrative. That's what they're trying to give, the narrative of fear, and to just give up. I hate to harp on World War II, but they told a certain group of people that, you don't need your guns, and we're going to reduce you to this area over here. And, we're going to make all these new rules about business, about who could. We've seen every bit of the playbook that's going on right now, except for now it's on a world scale. And I don't think people are catching on to that without the brainwashing, you could choose to opt out before they get enough power to kind of, it's like, what's that guy that he would get all the Pied Piper? They're Pied Pipering people into a collapse.
But how ready are you for that is the question. And okay, being ready for the collapse is one thing, but how long will the disruption last? And more importantly, are you ready for the full length of that disruption? Because obviously the first few days, few weeks are going to be the most difficult until you start to get things a little bit settled in and routines down and faster and easier ways to do things. Then the food's going to come in. You'll be having to grow your own food, and I can tell you over this last couple weeks, getting the fence out, getting the garden in. It's actually been more than 3 weeks now. Doing some things around in the fruit trees and whatnot, fertilizing this, cutting some bush back there. It's very labor intensive, and luckily we have enough food where you can still work a full day, fill your belly, put that protein and calories back in, and then be ready to work the farm the next day. Well, if you're in a food lean time, you put in a full work day like you do now, man, to bring all that energy back in so you can continue to work on a farm like that, or even grow the food and all the tasks. Because think about if electricity went down for a while, which I hope it wouldn't, you'd be washing clothes by hand. Then you get into a whole, like, wow, who's going to do all these tasks just to even keep the basic life functions going? Well, then you can see why, around a huge amount of the world that people don't have so many clothing possessions as others in the West, where they might be able to press a button and wash their clothes. Imagine doing it by hand. I'd have like 2 shirts. Like when I would backpack, I would do them in the sink or in the shower. T-shirts, obviously, or even just real thin cotton shirts. But I can remember just a handful of shirts because I would just keep rewashing them on each day or 2, 3, you're backpacking and like getting sweaty every day. But it would be the same thing. You wouldn't have the nearly a number of clothes if you had to wash them by hand. I was saying there's a lot of things that are going to change right now, and it's going to come incredibly fast. And the stock market crash that you're looking at, if you go over to, the Economist magazine for 2022, the year ahead, 2022, they even have a Bitcoin and an up arrow and a flag going to the top, and along with different price signals, Ethereum's featured in it. But it's not until after June, it looks like July, August, that it's going to run to ultimate highs. At least, these covers are quite telling for the future. But it looks like there's a lot of encoding of stock market crashes, reductions, and then just incredible gains from, I'm going to say August, September. Maybe that's crypto. But food pricing too, when it hits that, the whole market's going to go up at the end of the year because food prices will be the highest they've ever been. And gas too, everything. So Ransom, thanks for joining tonight, man. Sign us out. We got a couple minutes.
All right. Yeah, no, I was thinking, we may be going into an era where you just might have to start thinking a little different. Maybe it's a good idea to ask some of your neighbors if they're interested in gardening too, or maybe letting you use their land and giving them a portion of the food. I think everybody's going to have to go back to the old ways of things. And, that way we could just make it through any kind of hardship we have.
Yeah, that would involve sharing with the neighbors. And also if you have extra bounty at that point, because that was the same in the Depression, people who had extra would give food to their neighbors or somebody else poor in the neighborhood that couldn't get food. We're talking Great Depression stories here. So their food, everybody was fed all the time because extra food arrived to those who didn't have or couldn't grow. And that's the way we'll need to be thinking about this too. So if you have the extra bounty, if you have a few extra seeds, maybe they won't germinate next year or the next year because they've been in the wrong heat or saving condition. Perhaps just plant it, grow it, know that you can bring it to seed, at least some of it, and just get extra food out there for everybody growing right now because, what a tradable thing that would be. Especially if you were able to replicate it and that was your skill set. That's valuable. Anyway, thanks for listening. David Dubyne here, DAP 2030, Ransom Godwin, 420 TV Freedom is Film. See you next Thursday. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Revolution